Okay, Keegan, like every podcast, I start asking if we go into a bar and we ask for a drink, what is going to be the drink of preference of you?
Yeah, I'm gonna have a gin martini up with olives.
Hmm. I would say you're like classy things, simples. You know your thing. You don't like a lot of changes, but you like a twist. You like a little excitement, but at the end of the day, you want your space and you want you're more an introvert. You like to take a little risk and have fun, but at the end of the day, you want to land your plane safely.
Well, you were pretty much spot on. So we yeah, I mean, I will seek out adventure, but I'm comfortable at home in my, quiet home, working and keeping on my schedule. But I force myself to do something a little bit out there every once in a while to keep myself on my toes. So it's funny that you say that.
Different ages, different backgrounds, different stories. One common denominator: the desire to unleash a powerhouse woman. Selling on heels. Give a girl the right shoes and she will conquer the world. Selling is a craft and a science. Come to learn with us the superpower behind behavior for sales. Human Behavior Hacker School.
Well, as a sales rep, one of the things, not now, but at one point or another, we're going to go back to do things in a certain way, the way we did it before. And one of the things is like you going for a drink with a client or you're going to a networking event, and either to present yourself or networking with possible or prospecting customers. And one of the things is like, can I buy you a drink? And people says like, why are you wasting money? Like, no, actually, it's like to having a 180 profile on the person if I only know what they're going to drink. So I was telling you before, teaching that has been really difficult because I learned it by trial and error.
Mm-hmm. And if you've asked everyone, now we can be a better sample size for you as you keep going.
So talking about trial and error, I always says, and it's not diminished, but like, what hole on the crack you ended up in sales? Because nobody playing with Barbies and says, I want to be a sales rep. And most people use sales to pat to another position in leadership. Keegan, how you ended up in sales?
Okay, so it's kind of funny, but the great thing is in sales, you can say these things. So I had probably 5, 6 different internships through high school and college where I thought I wanted to be a marketer. I thought I wanted to be in graphic design. I thought I wanted to be in event planning. That's a tough job for anyone that's in that, not for me. And I thought at one point I was like, maybe I'll be in like real estate or something like that because I was working for a construction company. And something was missing in all of those jobs. And so when I looked for jobs coming out of college, I said, well, I don't really like sitting behind a desk at a computer and just making graphics. I was like, I do like telling clients my ideas. And I know I work harder than a lot of people. So maybe I'll try this sales thing. Well, little did I know it was the perfect fit for me because I worked harder than everyone. And when I worked harder, I made more money than the people I was sitting next to. And it was this nice like reassurance that if I worked really hard, I was going to not necessarily just make more, but make more of myself. But what's funny about this is I was thinking back on my childhood. Someone asked me this question the other day, and I was paid commission from the age 5 on. So I got a base allowance as a kid at like 25 cents. And there was a list of items that I could do every week where I could make more money to go get a snow cone at the end of the week. Well, I've been paid commission since I was a kid. So no wonder I was freaking out why I wasn't making more money when I was working in a marketing deal. So it ended up that it all came full circle and it was just made for me. But I mean, I walked in scared out of my mind and was like, okay, I guess we'll do this thing. And now we're just about 10 years later and I'm still here. So
it's funny that you mentioned this thing on sales, and I fall in this, like, you was like completely detached from the perspective that, oh, I'm going to be working in sales and I'm going to make a career on that. And it's funny because most people would criticize your parents like, oh, that is child labor. Why are you giving money your kid? You're going to ruin it. Like, no, they teach you the importance of behave, keep a schedule, work hard, and that it's get a premium at the end of the day. And that's the reason that working more give you more, and that's separated from others.
And not to mention like being around the house and being seen as the kid that does more than her job, right? Which is just being a kid. I mean, that builds kind of a brand for yourself and how you get reassurance that you're on the right path, right? And so, that can be both a pro and a con in the end, trying to make your parents proud. But it definitely was a reason walking out of school. I said to myself, I cannot not have a job when I walk out of college or I'm a failure. And let me tell you, this was 2011 and no one was hiring recent college grads because we were just still feeling the effects of the recession. People were only hiring people with experience. And I said to myself, if I can just get a job, then I at least am giving my parents back like what they had hoped for me, which was college will put me in the right direction.
What was the first job you have?
In my whole life?
Yeah.
Oh, the day I turned 13, you were allowed to get certified to babysit in St. Louis. So I went and got certified. I made my mom drive me downtown with a friend of mine, and we became like a dual babysitting club where we had like flyers together and we ran around town. But funny enough, a side job that same friend and I had was we would find old junk in her mom's garage and sell it door to door. So I guess I've always been a salesperson. I just didn't quite realize it.
That's what I'm saying, because you went all over the place where you ended up. They said that whatever you do between the ages of 9 and 13 or 14, guys take a little longer because it has to do with behavioral development. It's nothing wrong. They ended up choosing the same path. But women between the 9 and 13 is like what you dream about to be. Even though it take you longer, you ended up in that point. It's a correlation between that. And you were selling. Who would think about getting junk from your garage and convert it and money? Like you were where advanced the Craigslist, eBay, and all the other websites.
It's so funny because we found out like 20 years later, her mom used to follow us. We didn't know, and she would buy back the stuff. So she like knew this was going on, that we had this like fake business, and we'd sell it for like 25 cents, like her old candlesticks.
Wait. The parents didn't know that you was taking things from the garage and sell it?
It's not being used. We'll sell it. And we can buy like Chef Boyardee ravioli. We like would eat. It's so funny to think about now. And now her mom told us when we were in our 20s that she knew the whole time. And she had been like buying it back or asking the neighbors like not to pay us a lot because she was going to ask for the stuff back anyway.
So, but she was incentivized and let you become entrepreneurs, because at the end of the day, you was an entrepreneur, and every entrepreneur start by a solopreneur. It's weird, the companies who start like 100 employees. You start with the idea, you start with the driving, and you start with the fighting against everyone who says like, dude, keep your daily job, do not take the risk. But you was an entrepreneur and solopreneur since I don't know, 5 years old.
It's funny you say that, because I mean, my one best friend that I met when I was 5, we're still friends today. And she would be laughing right now because when we would play, like pretend, most people would like play with Barbies or I don't know, their dolls, or play a game. We played work. So we made a investigative business and we would be investigators. And the second business was we owned a gym and we would make people like sign in and pay us and come to our gym. We never played games that weren't work. So I guess maybe that is that time that was telling me that I was going to be built to work my whole life, because apparently I thought it was fun even at age maybe 8 or 9.
So what happened with your friend? She followed the same pattern, sales and developing, or she ended up in a traditional career?
That's so funny. So she became a teacher, but and one of the jobs we also had was a teacher back then. So she always kind of knew she was going to be one. But what's funny is she is now the teacher's coach. So she's training teachers all day and I'm training salespeople. And the two of us will like call each other for advice, because training adults is training adults, right?
Yes.
And so we'll give each other like key tactics we learned. We'll share articles with each other because our jobs are almost identical, just 2 totally different fields now, which is interesting. But
training adults is training adults, and then it's weird than training kids, because kids are sponges. Adults, they have way more resistance. So it doesn't matter what you teach them. Is to drive, to sell, to teach, you still teach them adults, and they have certain resistance.
Yep. And less of an attention span, if it's anything that I've noticed. So
we cannot criticize the kids. The adults are worse. One of the things that I do with my students is cell phones on the basket, like Okay, if you're not a policeman, you're not a heart surgeon, or you do transplant, your cell phone is on the basket. And they get really pissed off, but I need your attention because
Yeah.
I need you to leave this class getting the material that you need. Do you have any trick where you make people avoid getting overloaded in your classes with electronics?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I read an article a couple years ago, and it was talking about how millennials are naturally better multitaskers, but at the same time, they usually will focus on the wrong thing, and it's only the thing that pops up in front of them, not what was already steady state in front of them. So things like chat bots and email notifications and phone chats and whatever actually are really detrimental to a productive day, even though in their head they're saying I can text, watch TV, and be on the phone at the same time. The text is getting whatever pops up is going to get the attention. So we used to do call blocks on my sales team where the whole team agreed for 1 hour, chat bots went down, phones went in a basket, and we'd have a contest to see who with direct concentration on their one key job, who could do the best, and there would be like a prize. And it always proved everybody wrong that you think you're doing well, you think you're doing the right thing because there's immediate gratification associated with it. But in the end, your day went by and you were just busy, you weren't productive. And so it kind of helps like close that window. And sometimes people have to see it to believe it versus believe it to see it.
When it looked like you and I were similar on that, like then we need facts, data, and studies to prove that if our theories are right. And they say it's take between 10 to 25 minutes to the brain to switch one activity to another. Is that what I always says between Zoom meetings and calls? Get a block of 15 minutes so you can recap, take notes of the meeting that you have, and get prepared for the next one, because your brain doesn't matter the age or how intelligent you are, is how much your brain needs time to process the information that happened and the ones going to happen on the front.
That's actually a really interesting point because my CEO and I were the key trainers for the business too. So we often have to go from training right into like a client meeting or right into a team coaching meeting. And our brains are like fried. So if we just took that 20 minutes in between, it would just hopefully reset. I'm going to chat with him about that tonight.
Yeah, actually studies show that your brain needs 20 minutes. It's like, but the same way, if you want to get your brain wake up, you need to exercise for 20 minutes. Doesn't matter what it is. I mix between Zoom calls and phone calls. I try to do Zoom calls. So when I have a call, I have my headphones, my noise cancellation headphones, and I pace, I walk. Sometime around the house, not taking a stairs so my breathing doesn't change, but I pace, walk. And actually I found out that in the corner, I need to redo that part of the floor because I've been pacing more than, but if you walk back and forth, your brain gets stimulated and your body get lubricated and you don't have pain joints, and actually you're more productive. So sometimes like you look like you're naturally, and knowing that you're good in sales, how the pace, and looking for the right research in order to become better, to be present when you need to be training others. Because the worst part of the training is be the trainer. You don't have excuses.
No, you are on the stage and you better deliver. That's for sure. So what's really interesting, I believe in like, if your life is healthier, your sales will be healthier. And it's such a hard balance, right? Because sales, the job is never done and you can always do more and do better. But what I notice is it's the folks that take care of themselves that actually end up sustaining and or being able to stay in sales longer, be high performers. So example being like, I used to make one of the sales reps on my team run before work instead of after, because she was so much more productive when she got up, didn't go straight into work, went on a jog, had a morning and came in. I was like, I don't care if you're a little bit late because this makes you better. Another woman, she had to commit to me she wouldn't watch TV before bed because she could never sleep because she was so anxious. So when I'm managing salespeople, it's usually not what's happening between 9 and 5, which is why sales numbers are down. It's what's happening outside of that causes your sales numbers to go up or down. It's crazy to me.
So what is your routine in order to, because you coach, you're the VP of a company, you are coaching outside, you are taking this pandemic, you see the good side of the pandemic, like, okay, I don't need to be in Chicago all the time. I can be whatever I want. In this case, you're near to your parents and your family, and there is a really good support in times like that. So how you manage between the healthy, the job, the coaching, and wearing so many hats?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I would say, like, I don't think I learned taking care of myself early enough in life. So if I'm ever giving advice to someone younger, like, it's okay, take time for you. I used to freak out. Now I really am committed. So, I mean, I work out like maybe 7 days a week, six.
How you do that?
I'm very high energy, and so I won't sleep if I don't do that. I get like very jacked up from work, and so I need something to like pull the rest of the energy out of me. I just found that recently. I picked up running in the pandemic because I was always an indoor cycler, and obviously not so much of that happening right now. And so now I run a couple days a week. I see a counselor. I mean, you have to have somebody to talk to, otherwise your head will spin, and it can't be your family and it can't be your friends. And what else do I do? I literally try and do things that I think are fun. So I spent a month in Denver so that I could hike and get outside more. I like creative things. So I noticed that if I'm doing poorly at work, I probably haven't done something creative lately, like with my hands in some way. So draw a little, color, design something like that. I have to like fulfill that side of me. So I'm now just better at spotting the trends earlier. That's the challenge, right? And so that's like helped me. So if I start to realize I'm not sleeping, first night I'm not sleeping, I'm making sure my routine was back in check. Versus when I was head of sales at my last company, I wouldn't sleep for 3 months before I got myself into check. So it's just more about being aware. And that's, I think, what's allowed me to do like exponentially more and be a better person to myself and the people around me now.
It's good that you mentioned that you see a therapist, because more people is afraid. I have a therapist. I have been seeing him in and out for 12 years.
Yep.
And in the beginning, I did more therapy. I have an accident. I need to go through that. And I did a huge change in my career. Went from politics to consulting. Like I freaked out, like, what am I doing? And to help me to understand the process and go through. And we talk once a month now, even though after many years that he fired me. Basically, when they says, Susan, you're fired, like, you cannot do that. I'm paying you, like, you're fired. So we talk either once a month since the pandemic, but before that, we talk every 3 months. And it's just like, sometimes I just sit there and for 45 minutes says, what is going on? And he's like, you're doing great. Nothing is a set alarm. You're overloading yourself like always. We know that. But I see you stable on the project you do. And it's like you says, your parents, your friends, sometimes they're biased, helping you to understand that you're not losing balance and you're doing okay. So I really appreciated that you says that you have help balancing your life, because most people do not want to agree to do it. They think it's a weakness, or they don't want to admit that in some point you need help to get better.
Yeah, I'm one of, I have 3 sisters, one of 4 girls, and both my parents believe in, like, seeing people outside of your circle to give you advice as well. And for a while I was that person. I'm like, I don't need it. I'm fine. And finally I said, well, if I'm fine, don't I need it more? Because I want to be better than this, because this is just fine. Right. And so I actually ended up going in a time that wasn't even that, nothing that insane was going on in my life. And I've had plenty of like trauma, turmoil, life things, but it was more when I was like almost static, that scared me more than feeling stressed or excited, And so it's actually been like the best thing to happen, because I've been able to, like, now to that point, approach a time like this. It's so uncomfortable for so many, in like a very positive light, because I'm healthier, both mind and body.
When you say static, what do you mean with that? Because everybody have their own dictionary.
Profiling a customer is the challenge sales reps face every day. What if I tell you you can read anyone in 90 seconds? What if I tell you it can be done? Come to learn with us, Human Behavior Hacker School.
Yeah, static. So I'm naturally kind of impatient, and I like to see movement, believe I'm making a difference, feel impact. And when life shuts down and it says, well, you're not going to have your social life you had, and you're not going to have the job life you had, and you're not going to sit at home by yourself and figure it out in this world that all feels kind of like they're putting the world on pause. Like I kind of felt like I was walking in molasses. I was like, this is uncomfortable for me. I'm so used to saying I can control how I feel at the office. I can control the hours I put in. I can control when I see my friends, when I don't see my friends, and I can keep my energy high. And then all of a sudden the world said, no, thank you. You can't do that anymore. And I didn't like that because, that's uncomfortable. So instead I took a step back and I said, okay, instead of worrying about what the world's going to do, why don't I worry about what I can do? And it was, focus on my health, focus on my new routine, do things that make me happy. Don't be okay with just being fine. And so really it's been a lot of just self-work on top of work.
Take control of your life in a healthy way.
Yep. Then you can do so much more. All of a sudden your eyes are more wide, or you walk into something that you wouldn't have even expected. So naturally a lot of women in sales, and I'm saying this for myself and I'm sure there's some that will relate, is we're focused on the results. We know where we're going, right? We say if I do this and if I do this, then this is likely going to happen because I mapped it out in my head and I'm going to be the best person I can be to get there. I was promoted 14 times in 7.5 years at my last company.
Wow.
It didn't come out of nowhere. It came out of that. Well, what I found was that in turn, sometimes you miss what my counselor calls or better, right? Because you're so focused on the direction you're going that you're blind to the other things that could happen and come into your life. So when you focus on your deeper heart and soul, all of a sudden that result becomes less important and the journey becomes the fun. And that's how I've felt about the last few months is never did I think I'd be in my hometown. I haven't lived here in 14 years, right? But I'm here with family. I'm here exploring a new city, and I'm staying in an Airbnb in a part of town that I actually lived in when I was 4 years old and haven't been here since. So it's just, I don't know. I think there's more out there if we stop focusing on what we think is right or what we should do and instead focus on what we get to do or want to do.
Who was your mentor or your counselor when you was deciding? Because you went from realtor design, and it's nothing wrong. Everybody needs to. I'm more afraid to the person who says at the age of 10, I'm going to be a doctor, and they never explore anything else. And when they finish at the age of 40, and I didn't want to be a doctor. I made a mistake, but I didn't want to recognize or I didn't want to disappoint. And since I commit to that, I cannot say I made a mistake. And most of the most successful women that I've been talking in this podcast says, oh, I was all over the place until the age of 25. I was exploring different careers, au pair in Paris, traveling, backpacking. And it's a common denominator that until you don't explore all the options to make what is your real call, you're never going to be true to yourself. Yeah. And for people who doesn't understand the process, it's well, Keegan is all over the place. Yeah, but she's 30 and by VP of a sales company training, look like she got the thing together.
Yeah. It's so funny you say that because my sister, I put her up on a pedestal. She's a doctor of physical therapy and women's health. Okay. She did all that schooling. She knew she loved the way the body worked and she wanted to learn more about it. And she got a doctorate and went to Duke and then got a fellowship or something at WashU, one of the best women's health clinics in the world. And then all of a sudden she woke up and she said, this doesn't make me happy. Okay. So here's the thing. So most people there would consider that failure. I spent all this time. No, think about the experience. Think about the people you impact. Think about the life that you had. Now, all of a sudden, the people that really make it, the people that live their life and do amazing things are the people that say, great, that was the first chapter. What's next? Right? And so that sister of mine, she called me one day and she said, I can't believe I'm doing this, but you coach people for a living. And I've never asked you for help, but I need your help.
Wow.
And we took a walk around a park together, came into town, and I said to her, here's what you're good at. Here's what it sounds like you never want to do again in your life. Let's figure out what you're going to do. She landed a job at a health tech company, and she's helping them code out better ways for patients to get doctors' help through an app. She never would have thought she'd be there. And she is the happiest I have ever seen her in her entire life. And if she wouldn't have done what she did before, that wouldn't have even been in her vision or her view. And if she wouldn't have asked for help, she would have never gotten there, right? And so it's one of those things where it's like, all right, screw it. For the last 10 years, I did that. But there's so much more there if you just do a pivot instead of a major jump. So take the things you love, jump into it, and leave the things you never want to do again behind you.
I was reading an article, I think it was Inc. magazine or Forbes, saying this: the most successful new companies of entrepreneurs are starting the company between the 40s, 50s, and 55. What do I mean with this? When you're 20, you have all these ideas, but at some point, in order to get VCs and order the company working, you need a CEO. So the best CEO need to be with maturity and life experience. And people who have couple of companies, they're more successful they have, except that exception, but the more successful you get is when you're near to 40 and 50, because you understand what you don't like and what you don't want and what it work.
Yeah. And honestly, too, with that, it's like, there's some things that you just kind of need to experience in one way, even if it doesn't look the exact same, to be able to identify it later, right? Like there's a lot of good, I've never been much of like a dreamer or idea person. I'm the executor that gets matched with the dreamer to like help them through. But what I've found is like dreamers either need an executor in their life, or they need, to your point, more experience so they can spot their weaknesses to get the help down the road too, right? And so that would make a ton of sense, that the best ideas that actually become something are a little bit later in life. But a lot of people won't wait that long or won't give it the patience to do it.
I have a friend who is a CEO from a company. He is 57, and everybody in the company can be his kids. So I think the older person is 30. It says, how was today, like managing the kindergarten with technology? Like, I need a day off. And like, what are they like? They're genius. They can save the world, but they don't know where the world is located. So I need to pivot all the time to give them guidance. And like, what is normal? Remember when we were 20, we think that we know it all. And in top of that, you have someone who just doing something that is making money. They come up with the idea, they executing that. Are you going to tell them they're doing something wrong? Like, no, it's impossible. That's the reason having coach. I still have coach. I have business coach, marketing coach, coaches in my field. Every other week I met with people who does what I do. They're a small group, but it's a way to keep improving. You never stop improving. The day you think that you know it all, that's the day you're done.
Yep. That's what I love about sales too, is the actual sales industry evolves like every single day, right? I think about, we were teaching people how to make cold calls to people's office phones pre-pandemic. All of a sudden, at the drop of the hat, nobody's with their office phone anymore. And all the salespeople in the world don't know how to reach them, right? So they had to learn how to better message people on LinkedIn, improve their email writing, get creative and send a package somewhere, right? And all of a sudden, like, if you're not ready to learn and evolve and develop and try something new, you're still calling an office phone where nobody is now 9 months later when we thought it was going to be 2 weeks.
Maybe never going to be an office again, and never going to be a phone number on an office related to an office. I've been working with companies on the transition that they're not going to be back to the office. We sublet the space, and people freaking out, like, send in a chair, a microphone, a camera, and teach them how to work from home. That's it. Don't panic, because if you're the manager and you're panicking, what is going to happen with your people? So yeah, you need to pivot.
We've been doing some seminars with management as well, of just like, in sales, the lucky thing about sales management is you can manage by feeling, right? Your whole team's sitting right there in front of you, and you're like, Sam is having an off day. I can feel it, right? Now, all of a sudden, you take the one crutch sales managers have had their whole career, and you pull it out from underneath them. And they're saying, well, I don't know how my team's doing. I can't hear them. I can't see them. I can't feel them, right? And so there's a whole new skill set that leaders in sales now need to develop, which is proactive communication and asking good questions and diving into the scenarios that they can't see, hear, or feel anymore. I mean, the whole world is like, their heads are spinning. They're sitting at home, and then their confidence drops. Therefore, their salespeople's confidence drops. So we've got to give the right resources as, trainers, leaders, developers, to help people think, now you've lost your crutch. What do you do now?
Every time that I call for a training, says we need to start with the manager, because the people on the team, their work is not to understand the manager, it's the manager work to understand the team, because that way you have a strong team to go for it. But they tend to be the one who have more resistance, because if I am a manager, what I need to learn to, like, they need to follow my path. Like, no, you need to follow them to squeeze the best of your team to make the numbers.
Yeah. We at Victory Lap, we have a rule that you have to check your ego at the door. Like,
that's good.
That's it. It doesn't matter if your title is CEO or you're a brand new hire yesterday. We are all equal in that way, because we're all here to learn and build and develop this thing. And if anybody has an ego, it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit when you're moving fast and building new things.
You was talking about LinkedIn, and I need to put it out there. I start blocking people in my LinkedIn because I'm tired. Like, oh, let me help you to manage better your 401k. I can help you with your problems. I want to connect with you to explain you how you can do better. Let me give you sales training. Like, dude, I do sales training. Take 5 minutes to check my profile before to send me an email. Don't tell me I have a problem that you don't know that I have. So I stop friending people who tell me about problems, and they go to the sell pitch to the truth. They're like, I don't want to. And, oh, you have 5 minutes. First, it's never going to be 5 minutes. Second, I've never been busier in my life. Third, you're talking about problems that you suppose I have without knowing, establish a relationship, taking a look at my LinkedIn to know then I train the thing that you're selling me. So what is your advice for people who grab LinkedIn like the last piece of wood on the Titanic and like, okay, I need to be bombarding 100 people a day with what is your problem? Scarcity tactic doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, there's multiple solutions for almost everything now. And so if you think about it, if you're hitting that person's LinkedIn inbox, so is everybody else, right? So how are you going to differentiate, and how are you going to create value? And the way you do that is understanding your customers. So I would actually suggest that you're only looking at LinkedIn for your top, I know that if we work together, we'd do big things kind of prospect, and engage with them, read their articles, tag them in posts that you think that might add value to their life. And until you've built some kind of online connection, there's no reason you should be selling that person, right? So there's plenty of content, right? You'll probably put this out on your LinkedIn as well. Imagine if someone watched it and said, I loved when you said this. Just have an amazing day, and you might like this article too because you referenced something like it. All of a sudden, a month down the road, 2 months down the road, you're like, I like when Steve messages me because he provides me value. I'll give him 5 minutes. But right now, he doesn't deserve 5 minutes, right? And so I think it's a matter of realizing that this is still a social media platform, and relationships are built on social media. Relationships aren't built via email. They're not usually built via phone, but they are built via Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And it's tethered in with that there. And so you have to treat it the same way, even though it doesn't feel right in your sales process. So if someone is knowing me, understands me, has connected with me in multiple ways, I recognize their name because of us being in a same social media circle, I'll take a call. Other than that, no go.
Well, we were introduced, and at this point, I forget who we introduced because I've been interviewing so many people for different things, but we were introduced through mutual friends, like, yeah, you need to talk to Keegan. And like I know Brian, the president of the company, and I talked to Brian. So that's how small the circle is. So you need to be really careful how you're working, because I never would expect that knowing the company you're working with, that you're the VP, knowing the CEO of the company, I'm going to end up being connected to you through another amazing lady than I interview on this podcast. So how did it work?
Yeah. And honestly, it's the same way everywhere. I mean, when people are going into offices for interviews, I was like, you are on from the moment you walk through that door. You don't know who you're riding the elevator with. You don't know who recognizes you and is asking their friend about you. You don't know who you sloughed off when you walked off the train, right? And we have had people we know not get jobs, not because they didn't crush the interview, but because of how they treated everybody else. This world, this sales network, this tech network, just even the Chicago network is so tight knit. I can't walk into a room without seeing a face I at least recognize, or onto a Zoom call where I haven't seen a few names where I'm like, they're always on here. It's so small. You have to worry about your brand. You have to build one that is not just likable, but respectable. otherwise you're not gonna build up in this network. That's for sure.
Selling is a craft and a science. Come to learn with us the superpower behind behavior for sales. Human Behavior Hacker School.
When I'm talking with a company, they need to hire a high position person and says, I'm going to tell you only one trick, take them for lunch. And says, why? It's not what they're going to eat, it's how they're going to treat everybody around them. It's like dating. If you have the first dating and suddenly the guy or the woman is cocky with the server, be careful. Next one is going to be you. So if you're going to hire somebody who need to have people under their wing, depending how they treat everyone and how they engage in conversation. So it's happened to me. They have meetings with clients, and I suddenly start talking to the server, like, "Oh, tell me more." Like, "Oh, wow," and says, "You was interrupting our lunch." Like, no, I was asking that person how the person is, because I want to know more. That's the way I work. So how you impatient you were when I was talking to that person is showing me about your personality, not me interrupting the meeting. So your problem is that you want to go too fast to the end and you're losing the journey, like you says, and that's the reason you're missing in your people. I was showing you without telling you what is your problem. You want to move next? And they're like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, you don't take the time to curate things with your team. So that's the reason you go from like, you didn't do your numbers, goodbye. Like, check what happened, because maybe they don't feel the door is open physically or virtually to ask when they have a problem or they have a questions, because you're too busy being yourself and not managing your team.
I actually got a piece of feedback like that when I was an earlier manager. So I was, when I first became a manager, I was 30-1. So I had 30 sales reps and no sales management training. And that was
my God, 30 people under your wing?
30 brand new people at the company to me. Okay. And I'm sales managing them. If you have to guess how busy I looked, how tired I looked, how stressed I looked, because I had interviewed for 3 management positions before that and not gotten them. Okay. This was my dream job. Like, I was going to be a sales manager, and then this was the hand I was dealt. So I obviously was jogging from meeting to meeting. Like, I mean, I had a full sprint going. I was there before people got to work. I was there after, and I was not reachable, right? Like, I was not making myself available. Well, one day another person said to me, I said something like, "Oh, why don't you like ever pop by," or something like that. And they said, "Well, you're super unapproachable because you walk so fast that no one can catch up with you. So I've just thought you just didn't want to talk to me." And as one of the only woman managers at the time on my side of the division, that doesn't look great, right? It looks like I'm, who knows, already scarier than I probably look to all the men anyway, right? And so that was just really interesting feedback, because my reality was that I was swamped. The perception was that I was too busy for other people. And so it's really important that you look at both your reality and the perception on almost everything you do, because likely the perception could be something totally different than what you're thinking if you're too busy to take a minute and slow down.
And I think it has to do what you mentioned before, that you were so worried about the destination that you didn't enjoy the journey. And part of the journey was to know who is the people that I have in my team, the 30 human beings that they have different realities, and maybe knowing those realities, I can help them to flourish. And that's your position as a manager, who, by the way, is one of the most difficult jobs in the world, because everybody look at you and like, I just wake up today not knowing what even going to have for breakfast. You want me to tell you what to do with your life? No idea.
Yeah, it's actually funny, I think. And I mean, given the theme of this podcast, like, someone always says, like, you've been in a sales world where there aren't a lot of women managers. I've been on the new business sales side. So there was always a lot of women leaders in the account management side in my world, but in the new business side, because it's like feisty, scrappy, like really hard, tougher people, I guess, in a way. I always thought I was supposed to be someone different. Like, I didn't think I could like party with my sales team, because then I'd be the woman that isn't business enough or isn't serious enough. Yet every male sales manager could take their team out and party all night and still be respected. Or I couldn't, show up late to a meeting because then I looked like I didn't care, even though the men hadn't. And I never really thought about that because I was so busy proving myself and proving everyone around me wrong. But what I realized is every day I did that, I buried a little bit of me and who I am and what makes women managers so badass, which is our emotional intelligence, our ability to connect, our ability to show our vulnerabilities so that other people feel more comfortable. And in turn, because I was surrounded by a bunch of men, it got suppressed. If there's one thing now being in a company where I loved that job and I love that company and I would never like say anything bad and it's like the best thing that ever happened to me. But now I get to be like 100% me. Like I can laugh at myself, which is one of my strengths. My mother's told me that. I can mess up and not freak out. I can take an hour in the middle of the day and recoup. But I would have never done those things because I was so afraid of the perception. And so it kind of comes on both sides of that. It's like if you're so worried about what you should do, you almost lose yourself. You also need to be aware just in case you're putting the wrong brand out there.
How you ended up being so young, the VP of a company and sales who not only working on sales, you train other people how to sell. How you ended up in that position? How you ended up getting on the company first? Because I don't know if you ended up being a VP in this sense at the beginning, but I don't recall you start as a VP. You were growing like everything in your life. Like you start like, hey, I'm answering the phone. 6 months later, I'm the manager.
Yeah. So I have to take it back to my very first day on the job. So when I started at my old company, I was 22 years old. I graduated 1 week prior. I didn't even go home to St. Louis and I stayed in the DoubleTree Hotel in Chicago just so I could start my job there. I didn't even have a place to live yet. I was like, I will work in Chicago. And I walked into a room and there was 30 people, all with 3 to 5 years sales experience and me. I still don't think I was supposed to get in that room. I'm going to tell you it was luck. I have no idea. I went home and cried my eyes out. I was so scared. I was like, I can't do this. They made me role play in front of the room like the first day. And I was like, this isn't for me. I'm introverted. Like, no. I don't want to do this. But because of, like you said, with my martini, I threw myself in because apparently that's what I like to do to myself. And so that night I said to myself, cry it out, whatever, be scared. But if there's one thing you need to do is you need to find one person that's sitting next to you that you think is better than you, and you need to beat them in their sales numbers in the first month, and then you can do whatever you want in your career.
Wow, that is a huge challenge to yourself for a 22 years old, first day of the work. Kudos to you.
I just said, let me beat somebody. So I found this woman who is still a great friend of mine now to this day. And in the very last day of the first month on the job, I beat her by 1 contract because I came in earlier, I came later, and I learned as much as I could. Okay. Later down the line, she'll beat me out for a management job. Like there's plenty of things that go along with this story, but I just needed to prove to myself once that I could do something, and then I could continue to keep going. Right. And so what I learned from that is if I outwork everybody and outlearn everybody, I don't have to have any special skill to keep going, right? There is nothing else, right? And so in the last piece is just like keeping my attitude in check, which is the hardest thing in sales in the entire world. But if you're learning and you're working hard, a lot of times you can kind of fake that until it comes. So that's kind of how I approach everything. Prove everyone wrong, prove everyone wrong. I mean, I was a manager by 25 years old, I think, 26 years old. And everybody said she's too young. So what did I do? I proved to them that I would be the first manager to go into a head of sales role by the time I was 28, I think. So I was like, had this huge chip on my shoulder. Well, when I decided to leave that company, I didn't leave with another job. I was so burnt out. I was so tired. I was so lost. And my identity was so ingrained with that company and my job that I didn't even know who I was anymore. And no one else would have known that on the outside, but I was more lost than I had ever been in my life. And so I said to myself, you need to figure this out. You didn't make all that commission, put it in a bank account, take some time off and figure out what the heck you want to do, Keegan. So I went in, I gave my 2 weeks notice, and they said, where are you going? And I said, nowhere, just going to live. And they said, you'd rather be nowhere than here. And I said, if it's for my livelihood and my health, I guess that is the case.
Whoa.
So
hard pill to swallow for the person who asked you a question. Like,
I know, and it was like, it's not, I love this company. I've been here forever, but I need to do this for me. It's scarier to do this. I threw myself in. I took 4 months off. I traveled. I explored. I met every person I could meet in the Chicago tech world. I went to networking events, which I personally am so awkward at, but I forced myself to do it. And the day I gave up, I was in tears. I was like, I'm never going to go back to work. I don't like anything out there. Nothing feels right. An email hit my inbox from Brian Barr, the CEO of Victory Lab. And he said, this role I'm filling or going to put up on the site today makes me think of you. Let me know if you like it. Now, long story short, 3 years before or 5 years before that, I had been working for Brian at Groupon before. And I had actually helped him build the first lesson plan for Victory Lab in a random coffee shop because I found it interesting. So it all came full circle, and I joined Victory Lab as the general manager, which was basically the operations and people management to Brian's brilliance. Okay. And that's how I got brought on, and then ultimately moved into a VP role where sales is basically where my heart and soul is. And so that's where I am now. But it really, I mean, that whole story just shows like, prove it, but don't let your identity be your role or your role be your identity. So example being, I was a good person, but I didn't believe I was a good person without my job. And so until I could figure that out, I couldn't be VP worthy. You're too connected, right? You've got to be able to separate and say like, this is my job and I will give it everything I have. But if I am not 100% me and give me just as much, how the hell am I going to expect everyone in this organization that I'm building from scratch with someone I believe in more than anything and expect them to do that too? So that's kind of how this all came to be, and what I think is important for really senior leaders to emulate down to their people.
I find out a lot of times people get really cocky because they have positions in like the Fortune 500 companies, and when they get fired, they come to you like, dude, you eat your own pie. So you don't do that. You eat your own story and you believe it, and you become the position and the company that you was working. Now that you're not necessary anymore, you wanted to patch things with people that you destroy for years. So it's not going to happen. So when you talk about your identity, you went through a path that most people were like, oh the heck, why am I gonna leave this job that make me so much money to get my identity? Let's take a pill, go move forward, go to sleep, and wake up the next morning and keep going.
Yep. Honestly, the amount of people that told me I was crazy, I mean, in and out, they're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Like, you're on the path to be, like, I was probably on the path within a year to be a VP there too, but I didn't want to do that anymore. I was lost, right? Like I wasn't working towards something that actually mattered to me anymore. And so I went to a tiny company that literally doesn't even have funding yet, but is profitable and an amazing idea I believe in, to going from managing an entire organization at one of the fastest growing companies in the world to a team of 5. And someone goes, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? I was like,
I'm being happy.
It feels right. I feel happy. I'm excited to go in there. There was a really good vibe by the team that allowed me to be me. And I knew I was going to learn way too much, which was a good sign too.
Sometimes you learn more in small companies because you need to wear in so many hats that making you so more resourceful than when you're in a big company when everybody even brings their coffee, so you never know where the kitchen is located.
Yeah. What's so cool about my company too is working like yours too. You're working with all these different companies. So you're not just learning about your company anymore. You're getting like right under the hood in every other company. So you're saying like, wow, this isn't just a so-and-so company struggle or challenge. This is happening. This is just as bad as a pandemic across all leaders in the, US or world.
Yeah, people says, and we were talking about how it's crazy how more women become more productive during the pandemic than more men. They're like going crazy. Like when people says, I'm so bored, I'm like, dude, I started 2 companies, 1 podcast, 1 show with another 3 profilers, and I'm coming for more. And I already have my agenda full until 2022. Like, I don't have time to be boring. Like, what the heck is wrong with you?
Susan, what's so funny about that is I have a saying I keep in my head, which is boring people are bored.
Yeah, I think that can be possible. It has nothing to do with the pandemic. I think the pandemic is showing some colors, And some people who keep their life so busy to avoid, they were running from themselves. Now, so down they need to stop and be enclosed in a box. They need to face their own demons. And you choose to do that, taking all the risk, and says, okay, I'm going to take some time off facing my demons. Not because it's bad. Everybody have it. I have it. You have it. And the person who's listened to this have it too. Is how you manage those demons, control it, and you know that you have it, and when you need to let it go. Because sometimes I like to say on a Wednesday, like, you know what? I'm not working today. So my phone is off. I disconnect it, close my computer, and sometimes like, nope, I promise. And I go for a walk and just mani-pedi. And I allow myself to be responsible, because sometimes you need that pamper to yourself in order to like, okay, it's nice to be responsible for one day. Can you do that?
I am trying to get better at that, like really totally check out, because in the world we're in right now, like everyone can still reach you unless you make a really clear effort to not be reached, right? But one of the things that is interesting that you said is you now pick up on the trend that you need that day. And instead of saying feeling bad for taking that day or stressed about taking that day, you're like, if I don't take this day, then I'm not gonna, I don't know what'll happen after this. Like, this is for me, right? This is 100% for me. And so I've tried to find things where, like in Denver, if you're hiking, your phone loses its service. So I love that. I know how long I'm going to be out there. I know that I'm hopefully not going to get lost. And as a little bit of a control freak at times, I'm like looking at a map that doesn't work over and over again, right? To make sure I don't get lost. Or like Soul Cycle used to be a big one for me, because no phones in there. Like, you have to keep it out. It was 45 minutes that were just about me and nobody could find me. So I haven't gotten as good at like a full day like you. That would be a goal of mine. Well, I think there's something so much more welcoming when everybody is open and everybody's looking for a way to connect outside of just the job. And I think it becomes harder in Zoom, and the fact that you're doing, a weekly happy hour is like a really great idea. One thing, Brian,
on pajamas. You need to be on pajamas.
Well, secretly, I love pajama sets. I probably have like 9. And so I would be very fitting for that meeting. And all my friends make fun of me. Like, you are the most well-dressed sleeper I know. And I'm like, I know. But Brian and I try and get together. Like, if it goes longer than 6 weeks where we haven't like met somewhere outside, even during this, 6 feet apart, and had a drink and talked about not work and talked about our lives, the business starts to get like a little uptight. So we've now learned, like, we need to get together every 4 to 6 weeks and just have a Brian and Keegan chat. And it's like literally so funny. We can feel it. And we're like, wait, it's been a while since we've met up. We need to do that. And the second thing we've been doing as a team too, which is kind of fun. I actually advised my dad to, someone on my dad's team to do it with his startup as well. But every Friday, we don't talk business. We talk about one major awesome thing that happened to us that week, and we give one shout out to someone else on the team on something that other people probably didn't notice. And that's it. And that's how we end the week. And let me tell you, I've learned so much more about people's strengths that I would have never known about if those other people weren't shouting each other out.
When you don't feel like interviewing you or interrogating you, actually most interrogation and confessions happen between the jail and the interrogation room, that in the interrogation room. And people says, why are you torturing your sales rep? Like, no, if this person can get a confession of somebody else in 44 minutes saying that they're going to spend the rest of their life in jail without using any trick, pause, and the right questions, why you cannot profile on your customers, why you have been talking for 3 months with your customer and you still don't know what they need and what they want and what is perception of what you need to sell them. So let me tell you, if I can interrogate someone, I can get information from a client. So ask the questions. They are not questions. Establish a relationship and a conversation.
Profiling a customer is the challenge sales reps face every day. What if I tell you you can read anyone in 90 seconds? What if I tell you it can be done? Come to learn with us, Human Behavior Hacker School.
Yeah, and what that's saying is, what do they actually care about? It's not even what they always even need, because people aren't even always willing to make that a priority, right? It's like, if you know what drives someone or why they get up in the morning, like I'm working with this client right now, And these two sales leaders, and it's kind of fun because I get to sell to sales leaders, so I better be like on my game, but they are brilliant. They are caring. All they want is to build a culture that continues to grow within itself, right? And to know that makes me do my job better. That makes me want to send amazing salespeople to them. That makes me want to give them extra advice and help and build this thing with them. And if I would have never spent the time getting to know them in that way, I'd just be like sending them some sales reps, right? And who knows if they fit or who knows if they match. So that kind of what they care about, I think is something a lot of people miss.
I would say this episode should be calling like, how caring about me helped me to care about everybody else.
Yeah, it definitely makes you more relatable and makes you think about those things, right? And unless you have something to talk about, right? Like something you care about or something that matters to you, it's really hard to ask other people for that too.
But most people would say, if I'm taking care of myself, I'm selfish. And it says, it's a difference between narcissism and selfish. And people misuse narcissism because you're taking care of yourself. You're the most important person in your life. If you don't take care of yourself and you learn from yourself, you're never going to be able to ask other people how they're feeling because you're never connected with that. So in a young age, you have the luxury to have a life path that gets you to understand that before it's too late. Because I know so many people who retire and says, I wish if I would have done, if I would listen, if I was connecting, if I would do this, like too late, you're already retired.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, our society needs to stop saying we should regret things, right? Like it's a learning opportunity. Like I think about times, I don't have one regret in my life. And it doesn't mean I was the best person always, or I always did the right thing. But if you can learn something from it or see how it ended up evolving your life in a better way in the end, then it can't be a regret anymore, right? Like I could say that moving to Chicago was a regret. It's not at all, because it was really hard the first year. Then that's like such a waste, because then I got 9 more that were like amazing. And I don't know, why worry about the past? Like reflect on it, understand it, figure out what you can learn from it. Like no one's like keeping a note card of like all the times Keegan said something wrong. And I at least hope they're not. Maybe there's someone out there. But if there's
always someone who looking for that to give you a hard time. We have that people in our life. Thank God.
People back there like, come on, we saw that you said that once in 2014 that you
really?
Whatever. Actually, that's so funny that I was thinking about 2014. In 2014, maybe it was like 2016, I had a day where I cracked as a manager. I reamed my team out, Susan. Like, and I have a very level head most of the time, like, or at least can keep my cool in the moment. I lost it. I mean, I was like, no one gives a shit, yada, yada, yada. And I walked out of the room and I went home that night. I was like, oh God, what did I do? At that moment, most people would be like, I'm going to regret that forever. What I did was I pulled that same team in the room the next day, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I apologized. And what that team said to me was, I've never had a manager apologize to me. We won't take it farther than this. That is insane that managers are not apologizing, that when we screw up, we're not doing the harder thing, which is thinking about it and saying you're sorry. We don't have to fix it all. We don't have to change it all, but we're all freaking human, right? We can't get it right. And so, I don't know, I think we're so worried about being perfect all the time or doing like the best that then you have more regrets because you didn't do the harder part, which is fix it.
How are you going to tell your team, come to me when you have a problem or you made a mistake so we can fix it if you never own your own mistakes? One of the things that I learned, thank God to my business coach, is own your shit the first day you made it. Raise your hands first. It allows us to, all of us, to be more human. And sometimes people forget that at the end of the day, even though you look at yourself and Zoom, we're still human.
Yeah, that's awesome that you're doing that with your team, and now you're seeing that second part, because that's when the ship starts to hum, right? And the big things start to happen, because people that are closer to the problems are finding them faster and bubbling them up, instead of being afraid. The people that are causing some problems are being accountable and they're getting fixed faster versus becoming bigger problems. And then the people that are doing really, really awesome things are probably getting seen too, because it's making a big difference for the company, but so hard to get there for so many. People would rather, like, I guess, lie or hide from it sometimes because it's scary. But I mean, the only rule I had growing up, I had no other rules. My parents, I don't know how it worked, but was you can't lie. That was the only one.
Well, I did a career on that. And by the way, I have the best team I ever had in my life. You know why?
Same rule.
I let everybody flourish when I want interview them. I said, what do you want to do? Don't tell me in 5 years. I don't care about your resume. I already read you. I saw, I did a profile on you. So by your words, your picture. So you're done. I know that I want your team. Well, my only point is, what do you want to do in the team? Like, well, but the position, like, I don't care about the position. It's what you want to do. I was the one who need to learn to let it go and let people flourish by themselves. Like Steve Jobs says, you don't hire people to tell them what to do. You hire people to tell you what to do. So help people flourish. At the end of the day, help your business.
Yeah. Why do you think it's so hard? It's so interesting that happens, because so often leaders, like, delegating is the hardest thing for us because we were probably really good doers and really, like, did it our way and right. Like, why do you think that then we get there and we can't seem to let other people do it? I guess it's hard. Delegating is the hardest thing for me.
Because we have that feeling that nobody can do it better than we can do it until you fail. Like, you felt horrible trying to do 4 websites and telling. And I don't get me wrong. The person who does our website has been the one who has been longer with me on the company. But she's like, okay, Susan, you said we need to do it. And like, I was doing all these amazing things, and our website went from ranking 90 to 13. I'm like, what the heck? What happened? We're being hacked? Like, no, I messed it up. And it was a really punch on the ego, but it was the best thing who can happen to me, because I finally understand, like, Susan, because you're really good at what you do, and I don't want to sound cocky, but I'm really good at what I do, doesn't mean that you can design a website. So I hired a company, and we went from 13 to 98 now. So we're killing it. We showing on the first, in 3 weeks, we went from not showing anywhere to showing on the first page from everything that you're looking for related to our. Why? Because I give the job to the right people. And sometimes I was like, I hate what you do. Like, it need to be done. So what I do is I mute myself on the meetings and says, okay, you're going to be talking. I'm going to mute myself. So I cannot interrupt you because I hate what you're doing, but we need to get it done. So I mute myself and I start.
That's amazing.
And when they says, you're done. Okay. I put my mic on and like, I hate it, but even though we're going to go for it. Like, are you sure? Like, no, I'm not sure. But the other point is, I don't know anything about what you're talking. So that is the reason I bring it to the team, because you know more than I know. But that, I would say, is one of the biggest, harder lessons that I have. And I'm so happy that I fail, because that gave me the chance to become better and to bring better people to the team.
Yeah. That's a good tactic. I'm going to use it, the muting one, because sometimes I'm just like, no.
Mute yourself. Actually, Zoom is great for meetings because you can edit it yourself. Before, it's like, oh, I'm talking all the time, because you see me, like, in Zoom's like, I mute everyone as they come to the meeting, and I only unmute the person who is presenting. So you need to take notes of your questions, and when the person is done, I unmute you. Until then, you need to raise your hands and to see if I allow you to talk, because if it's not, and I found out the Zoom meetings ended up being more productive because I can mute myself first. I'm the worst part of the meeting.
That I was at a conference last year back when they were in person, and major, or like, I think she was the CMO of a magazine, major magazine. And she said, the best leader is the best quarterback, not the best marketer, salesperson, writer, whatever. And I really took that to heart, because if you really want to be a leader, you don't have to be the best at that. You have to hire people that are better than you, hopefully. And it is scary for your ego, right? I'm a VP of sales. And if my salesperson is better than me, that can be scary, right? But that's not my job every day, to be on the phone selling. It's my job to provide a strategy that allows that person to be better at their job.
But in the other point, when you hire people that you know they're going to become better than you are, it's allow you to keep competing to yourself and become better. The person who I hired 3 years ago to be my assistant today is my business partner and CEO of the Latin American office, and she's the head of training. And basically, she was paid for 2 years to get trained. And one point, like, she started having podcasts, people is publishing articles, and like, oh my God, my baby's flourishing. It's not, I don't get jealous. Actually, when she does podcasts, like, I'm not going to be showing, like, but they want, like, no, honey, I'm not going to be showing up. She become better than I am. So she make me get in top, because sometimes, like, Susan, did you read the study? Like, I didn't see it. Where it show up? Like, in the New York Times, like, shoot, send me the article. So oblige me to keep on top and keep coming back. So if you're afraid that people that you train and your people become better than you are, it's not your people problem, it's your problem. Because that's the way you're never going to grow up.
Yeah, that's, and it will challenge you to go do something more better, or at least just stay relevant, right? Like, you never want to become irrelevant. That's no.
It's the best word. I love when they say, wait, Susan, did you miss this? They know where to put the finger. Like, what do you mean? I missed this? Like, no, it's unacceptable.
Come on.
It's unacceptable. So, but I like the teasing, and I like the game we create together, because it's healthy. And I know more people probably want to say, like, Keegan, you and Susan are like, you're the worst manager. You're never going to work in another company. Like, I don't know, but it's working for us. Talking about working, what is the most ashamed moment that legally we can talk in your career when it's like, what the heck I was thinking about? But in the other hand, thank God it's happened, because you learn from that.
I have like a just one that's gonna, anybody listening to this is just gonna crack up if they've been in cold calling sales. So it was before I was taking care of myself, Susan. So I was working myself to the end. Okay. I was up early every day. I was working hard at night, and it was during a time where I would try and hit goal in half the time, so that I could like travel the other half and come back and do it again. Okay. So, I mean, I was like burning at both ends, like so tired. And I remember I was like right towards the end of the month, and I was calling into small businesses. And I was on the phone cold calling. I was about to close the deal. And I think it was one that was going to get me to goal. Like, I think it was that like final like straw that was going to break the camel's back. And I had been running, and I was multitasking, and I was closing another deal at the same time. And I'm on the phone, and I said to the small business owner, okay, I love you, bye. Susan, what, was I talking to my mom or something? Like, I don't know what had happened. I don't know what was going through my head. And this sweet business owner goes, okay, bye.
What happened after?
I mean, she just let it go. I think she knew how stressed and whatever I was, but the entire sales floor in sales sits around you. The amount of eyes on me at this time, Susan, someone goes, what did you just say? And I was like, I just told the sweet bakery lady that I loved her. And now I'm so embarrassed. I don't think I called her back for at least like 2 or 3 weeks, because I just needed it to blow over. It was so embarrassing.
Lesson to learn. Take care of yourself before you're going to take care of your business.
It all comes full circle. It was that moment when I realized sleeping's important and you need to take care of yourself.
I think my bet is for decoration lately, so I'm going to need to learn from you.
Well, as soon as you tell someone you love them on the phone that you shouldn't be saying that to, Susan, that's when it'll really hit you.
I say that to my pets every day, so I think I'm worse than you are. Well, you was.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think I've told anyone I love them since then, well, at least any business owners.
Keegan, it's been a pleasure. I like the structure of this podcast, because it has to do with examples. Everybody think that the line is so perfect, and you cannot allow you make mistakes. And I'm so grateful for my mistakes more than my triumphs. And I think that's one of the reasons this podcast started, to show other women, like, maybe you lost today, but don't worry, it's still the path out there to be seen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. The more we can be ourselves and show the world that women are awesome and they're really badass at work and they're really good leaders, we just need to keep sharing it. We need to keep laughing. We need to keep being the people we are, because that's what usually the people that work for us get to see, but not everybody else that's making all the assumptions and statements in outside world. So I don't know. It's kind of like if you talk about it more, if you show it more, then everyone starts to believe it a little bit more. And we're pretty cool, I think.
Well, the idea is to keep it rolling, selling on heels, as you can be a badass and still wear your stilettos and get your things together.
Yeah, I agree.
Keegan, thank you very much for your time. I'm really looking forward to have you back, and let's see what the next step. I'm actually going to be looking really near to see what is the next step.
Hopefully something big and exciting that I don't know what it is yet. But seriously, thank you for having me. This was a really fun discussion, and I felt like it was a nice back and forth, which you don't always get. So I appreciate it.
This is an structured conversation, and that's where it keep it real, because allow you to relax, and that's the idea that people can know the real you.
Yeah. Soon enough, you'll have to do one called like chatting in pajamas to go with your team.
Oh, definitely. And I have, by the way, I have a skull glass, and that is black, so you don't know how much wine I put on it. So
it's perfect. A nice relaxation in pajamas.
Definitely. Today is my meeting with the team, so I'm really excited to see what pajamas I'm going to be wearing.
I love it. Well, thank you so much.
Bye, Keegan. Thank you.
Profiling a customer is the challenge sales reps face every day. What if I tell you you can read anyone in 90 seconds? What if I tell you it can be done? Come to learn with us, Human Behavior Hacker School. Different ages, different backgrounds, different stories. One common denominator: the desire to unleash a powerhouse woman. Selling on heels. Give a girl the right shoes and she will conquer the world.